If you're into creepy true stories, unsettling real experiences, and the kind of moments people can't quite explain, you're in the right place. I upload new stories 3, 4, sometimes even 5 times a week. If that sounds like your thing, consider subscribing. And it all starts with that moment. 5 minutes. That's how long it took for everything to fall apart. 5 minutes between thinking we'd found something cool and sprinting blind through trees with my lungs screaming while cracks echoed off the hills behind us. I'm not going to call them what I think they were. My best friend got grabbed. A man came out of nowhere and yanked him backwards so hard his feet left the ground. I saw Zach's face. I saw the moment he understood what was happening. My name is David. Most people call me Dave. I've told this story maybe 3 times. Each time I get to certain parts, I notice my hands doing this thing, fingers curling and hard, knuckles going white, like they're trying to grip something that isn't there anymore. My wife pointed it out once, said I was making fists while I talked. I looked down, and she was right. I didn't even know I was doing it. This happened a few weeks before I turned 30. Late September, maybe early October. That year before everything shut down, you remember? When you could still do things. When the world still felt like it had rules. I had a desk job, nothing interesting. Inbox that never emptied, meetings that blurred together. The kind of work where you look up and it's 4 p.m. and you can't remember what you did since lunch. The wilderness was the one place where my head went quiet. I liked coming home sore in a way that made sense. Blisters, tired legs, problems you could solve by watching where you stepped. I never went alone though. Zach was my best friend. We met in our early 20s, through some mutual friend I think at a bar. One of those things where you just click. We didn't need to talk much. We just planned trips, pack the car, go. We'd done chunks of the Appalachians, some trails out west, a week in Canada where it rained every single day, and somehow we still call it one of the best trips we ever took. The rain never let up, and we'd just sit in the tent playing cards and it was fine, better than fine. We'd gone a little into Mexico once, not far. Enough to learn that when you're out of your element, assumptions can hurt you. Enough to understand that the rules you grew up with don't always apply when the signs stop. Oregon had been on the list, forever. Not Portland, not the coast. The real Oregon, the one in the pictures. That green that doesn't look real. Rivers cold enough to hurt your teeth. Forests that swallow sound whole. We kept saying, next year. Then next year became the year after. You know how it goes. Life gets in the way. Work gets in the way. Money, timing, all of it. Then it actually lined up. Work eased off. Zach could swing the time. We'd saved enough to do it right. Good gear, good food, no cutting corners. 2 weeks on trail, plus buffer days if we found somewhere worth staying. We planned it like it mattered, because it did. People who don't hike think planning means snacks and a tent. For us, planning was maps with backups, water sources marked, recent trail reports printed out. Zach had a whole folder, fire history, closures, the boring stuff that keeps you breathing when things go wrong. We picked the Siskiyou region, right along the Oregon-California line. Once you're deep enough in there, the state line doesn't mean much. It's just trees, just terrain, just silence that stretches for miles in every direction. But we flew in from the Oregon side. Oregon was the point. Oregon was what we told people. The flight was fine. Grabbed the rental. Some SUV. I don't remember what kind. Silver, I think. Drove south. The road got worse the further we went. Pavement to gravel, gravel to dirt. Billboards disappeared. Cell towers stopped. The trees got bigger. The sky got smaller. We stopped at the last supply place before the trailhead. Little store with a gas pump out front. The kind of place that looks like it hasn't changed since 1970. I bought tortillas, peanut butter, jerky. Zach got the coffee and batteries, fuel canisters, the stuff you curse yourself for forgetting when you're 20 miles from anywhere. The woman at the register had this look, you know? That look locals give you. Not unfriendly, just knowing. Like she'd seen 100 guys like us come through. Like she knew something we didn't. We got to the trailhead late afternoon. The moment I stepped out of the car, the air was different. Sharp, clean, cold enough to sting a little. The kind of air that makes you feel like you can breathe deeper than normal. Zach was already looking at the trees like they owed him something. That was his tell. He was happy. First night, we didn't go far, just found a flat spot to set up. Ate, stared at the sky. The stars out there, I forgot what stars actually looked like. In the city, you get maybe a dozen on a good night. Out there, it was just thick. The whole sky. Milk spilled across black velvet. I lay there on my back and felt small in a way that wasn't uncomfortable. We said dumb stuff. Man, this is gonna be one of those trips. That kind of thing. And for the first few days, it was. Day 1, the trail was busy. Well, busy for backcountry. Day hikers, couples with little day packs, a group of college kids who were way too loud for 8 in the morning. Everyone does the nod thing. Quick hellos. Where you headed? You don't get too deep into it, but there's this understanding. Help if someone needs it. Because eventually, that someone might be you. Late in the afternoon, we passed this older woman going the other direction, moving slow but steady. She had that look, like she'd been hiking these trails since before we were born. Probably had. Gray hair pulled back, face weathered in a way that suggested decades of sun and wind. She moved like she belonged there more than the trees did. We mentioned we were planning to push deeper in, off the main routes. She got this little smile.
Stick to the marked trails when you can,
She said.
Some of those old spurs aren't worth the trouble.
It didn't sound like a warning exactly, more like advice, same as telling someone to avoid a certain neighborhood after dark. Zach laughed a little. We'll be good. She nodded and kept walking. I've thought about that moment a lot since. Her tone, the way she didn't elaborate, the way she just kept going, like she'd said all she needed to say, and the rest was up to us. Day 2, the crowd started thinning. The trail got rougher, fewer blazes on the trees, fewer of those little rock piles marking the path. You had to actually look for the route, instead of just following the highway of boot prints. We made good time. Found a spot by a creek to camp. Water was cold. I mean, really cold. I tried to wash my face, and my hands went numb in about 10 seconds. The kind of cold that feels like it's coming from somewhere ancient and deep. That night, Zach made this thing with the tortillas and peanut butter and some honey he'd brought. It sounds disgusting, but when you've been hiking all day, it's basically gourmet. We talked about nothing, work stuff. Some girl Zach had been texting, fantasy football, I think I was losing badly that year, normal stuff. The fire crackled, the creek burbled, the stars came out one by one. Day 3, we saw maybe 2 other people, total. The terrain changed, steeper, more rock. The trees got bigger, these old growth sections where the trunks are wider than your arm span. Some of them had to be 500 years old, maybe older. They'd been standing there before this country existed, before anyone drew lines on maps and decided what things meant. My boots were starting to rub wrong on my left heel. Should have broken them in more before the trip. Zach had some moleskin, and I patched it up. We camped on this little ridge with a view. You could see the mountains going back, layer after layer, each one a little hazier than the one before. Blue fading into sky. I took a picture, but it didn't come out right. Pictures never do. Day 4. We didn't see anyone. That's the sweet spot. That's what we came for. The trail was barely there in places. You had to look for the blazes. Sometimes they were so faded, you weren't sure if you were seeing one or just a weird mark on the bark. It was quiet, not silent. There were birds, wind in the branches, but quiet in a way that felt intentional, like the forest was paying attention, like it had noticed us, and was waiting to see what we'd do. We stopped for lunch by this little stream, just sat on some rocks and ate, and didn't talk for maybe 20 minutes. The water was clear enough to see the pebbles on the bottom, clear enough to see little fish darting around, oblivious to everything. I remember feeling grateful, just grateful to be there, to be alive, to have a friend like Zach, and the ability to do things like this. That feeling lasted about 4 more hours. And then, late afternoon, we found the road. It branched off to the right, barely visible at first, just a gap in the trees that was a little too straight. Then you saw it. Two parallel lines pressed into the dirt. Old roadbed, ferns and salal growing over most of it, but not all of it. I've seen a lot of old logging roads. They're everywhere out there, ruts filled with moss, saplings growing up through the middle. The forest takes them back eventually. You see them and think, someone drove a truck here once, 50 years ago, longer. This was different. The tire tracks looked recent, like within weeks maybe, and branches had been cut back, not broken, cut, with a saw or something. The cut ends were still pale, sap still tacky when I touched one. Someone was using this road, maintaining it. Zach crouched down and ran his fingers along one of the tracks, looked up at me. His eyes had that gleam, that curious gleam that usually meant we were about to do something interesting.
"This isn't old,"
he said. We got the map out. There were some dashed lines in the area, old service roads, utility access, that kind of thing. Nothing matched up exactly with where we were standing. I remember looking at it and thinking, we should just keep going, note it and move on. I even said something like that, I think. Probably just forestry, maintenance or whatever. But Zach had that look. You know the look. When someone's already made up their mind and they're just waiting for you to catch up.
"Let's just see where it goes,"
he said.
"We can always turn back."
So, we followed it. I don't have a good explanation for why. Curiosity, I guess. You're out there for 2 weeks and something different shows up, and you want to know what it is. That's human, right? That's normal. The road kept going. It narrowed in some spots, widened in others. There were sections where brush had been cleared recently. You could see the cut stems. Stream crossings had flat rocks placed deliberately, like someone had hauled them in. This wasn't just someone driving through occasionally. Someone was keeping this corridor open. On purpose. With effort. With intent. Maybe half a mile in, this smell came through. Faint at first. Fuel, gasoline maybe, and something else underneath. Chemical, sharp, but also kind of sweet, like cleaning supplies mixed with something vegetal. It came on the breeze, and then it was gone. I told myself it was old equipment, some cash someone had forgotten about. Nothing. We kept walking. The road went farther than I expected. Sometimes it narrowed, sometimes it opened up again, and you could clearly see where tires had passed. There were even a couple spots where rocks had been set in a way that made stream crossings easier, like someone had reinforced them. That's when the uncomfortable thought finally showed up, and wouldn't leave. Someone wasn't just using this road. Someone was keeping it usable. Actively. Recently. Right now. The road ended at a hillside. From a distance it looked like any other hillside. Trees, brush, rock outcropping at the top. But when you got close you could see the concrete. Old poor, weathered. Half buried under vines and ferns. A rectangular opening cut into the rock. Maybe 8 feet wide, 6 feet tall. Inside was dark. The darkness seemed to have weight. There were rusted pipes coming out of the rock above the entrance. Vent grates, some broken, some still intact. Cold War thing, I figured. Or old forestry storage. Maybe some kind of hydrology station. It had that look, that the government built this in 1960 and then forgot about it. Look. Zach was already pulling out his headlamp.
"This is gold,"
he said.
"This is exactly what I was hoping we'd find."
I felt the pull too. Real discovery. The kind you don't get often. A piece of hidden history tucked into a hillside where no one goes. I got my headlamp out too. We geared up. Headlamps, flashlights, as backup. Checked that everything was secure so it wouldn't rattle. The entrance was cooler. Just a few steps in, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The air felt heavier, damper, like stepping into a cave. The echo was wrong. Our footsteps sounded hollow, and then the sound just stopped, got absorbed by something. The walls were concrete, peeling paint that might have been green once, wires hanging from the ceiling, rusted brackets that probably held something at some point. Damp, stale, all the things you'd expect from an abandoned tunnel. We moved slow, light sweeping back and forth. The beams cut through the darkness and showed more concrete, more decay, more nothing. Maybe 50 feet in, the passage forked. Left side was partially collapsed. Ceiling had come down at some point, rubble blocking most of it. Right side was clear. We went right. The first thing I noticed was a boot print in the dust on the floor, fresh. The edges were sharp, no blurring, no settling. Someone had walked here recently, maybe that day. My brain registered it, filed it away, kept moving. Zach pointed at it, raised his eyebrows. His face said, "See, interesting." I nodded. My gut was saying something else. I didn't listen. We kept going. The passage curved a little to the left. More debris on the floor. Old cans, some rotted wood, what looked like pieces of old equipment, rusted beyond recognition. Then I saw the cable, black, thick, modern. It ran along the floor against the wall, no dust on it at all. Everything else in here was covered in dust and grime, and this cable looked like it had been installed last week. Zach crouched down and touched it, then jerked his hand back, like he touched something hot.
It's live,
He said, quiet.
There's vibration. It's got power running through it.
That cable did not belong in an abandoned structure. It looked new. It wasn't dusty. We should have turned around. I know that. You know that. Anyone listening to this knows that. But we didn't. We followed the cable. It led into a larger space, a chamber, maybe 30 feet across, ceiling higher than our lights could reach clearly, and it wasn't empty. Shelves, metal shelving units, the industrial kind. Plastic bins stacked neatly on them, labeled, but I couldn't read the labels from where we were standing. Tools laid out on a workbench like someone used them every day. Folding chairs, a table with coffee mugs on it. The mugs looked clean, recently washed. It was organized. That's what made my stomach turn. Organized meant someone worked here. Someone cared. Someone was coming back. The smell was stronger here, chemical, sharp, but also this other thing underneath, vegetal, kind of, like heated plant matter. Damp greenery, but concentrated. Then I saw the lights, grow lights, row after row of them. Plants underneath. I'm not going to say what kind. You can probably guess. But it wasn't just a few plants. It wasn't a hobby. The scale was, it was industrial, serious. Rows and rows stretching back into the darkness beyond our lights. And it wasn't just that. It didn't look like they were producing only one thing. There was ventilation equipment, fans, ducting, filters, professional stuff, and gloves laid out, masks, the kind of masks you wear when you're working with chemicals you don't want to breathe. And there were other details that didn't match what you'd expect if it was only that. Containers with labels I couldn't read, equipment I didn't recognize, a kind of cleanliness in certain corners that didn't fit a simple grow operation. The setup was too deliberate, too organized, too funded. Zach just stood there, staring at it.
This is way past college grow-op shit,
He whispered. No joke in his voice, no excitement anymore, just recognition of what we were looking at, of what it meant, of how badly we'd miscalculated. We started backing out, slow. Lights pointed down so they wouldn't flash around. I don't remember deciding to leave. We just were, moving back the way we came, not talking, just going. The tunnel felt longer on the way out. The darkness felt thicker. The voices came from somewhere to our left. Behind us, I think, but the echo made it hard to tell. 2 voices, maybe 3, speaking fast, English and Spanish mixed together, short sentences, commands, work talk. And then they stopped, not finished, stopped, like someone held up a hand, like someone heard something. That silence is still one of the clearest memories I have from that whole trip. Because it wasn't just quiet, it was listening. The silence lasted maybe 2 seconds. It felt longer, it felt like minutes, it felt like the tunnel itself was holding its breath. Then footsteps, fast, not running but purposeful, multiple sets, coming closer, not slow searching steps. Not cautious, fast, like someone already knew where to go, like we were expected. We moved, trying to be quiet and fast at the same time, which doesn't really work. I kept my light low, pointed at the floor just ahead of my feet. Behind me I could hear Zach breathing, ragged, scared. At the junction, the same fork from before, A man stepped out of the collapsed passage, except it wasn't collapsed all the way. There was a gap, or he came from somewhere else. I don't know. I just remember him being suddenly there, blocking the way. He wasn't big, average height maybe, but he moved like, I don't know how to explain it. Like he'd done this before, like we were expected. There was training in it, not like military training necessarily. I don't know what that looks like, but something. Experience. He grabbed Zach. One motion, jacket and pack strapped together, pulled hard. Zach made this sound, not a yell, more like the air got slammed out of him. His feet went out from under him for a second. He twisted, shoved with his elbow, tried to pull away. The guy shouted at us, English mixed with Spanish. I caught the tone, even if I didn't catch every word. It was not a warning, it was ownership. This was his place. We were trespassing, and he was going to show us what that meant. For a split second, my brain flashed a picture of Zach disappearing into that side tunnel and me standing there in the main corridor, deciding whether to follow him or run. I swear my body went cold in that moment. The strap tore. The pack came off in the guy's hands. Zach stumbled forward, toward me, toward the entrance. We ran. Then we were outside. Trees, brush, the logging road behind us. Then these sounds. Cracks. Sharp, echoing through the trees. I've never been shot at. I don't know what gunfire actually sounds like when it's aimed at you, but that's what I thought it was. That's what it sounded like. Sharp reports, bouncing off the hillside, impossible to locate. We ran, not on the road, into the trees. Downhill, then uphill when the slope changed. Through brush that grabbed at our clothes like hands. No direction, just away. Zach's breathing sounded bad, ragged, like he couldn't get enough air. Mine wasn't much better. I lost my secondary water bottle somewhere in those first few minutes. Heard it bounce off something and disappear. Didn't stop. Couldn't stop. We just lay there, breathing, trying not to breathe too loud. The forest got quiet again. Birds came back, wind in the branches. I don't know how long we stayed there. Long enough that my heart stopped hammering. Long enough that I started thinking about things other than running. Zach was shaking. His hands were shaking so hard he couldn't hold them still.
They got my pack.
He said, quiet, like admitting it made it more real.
My wallet's in there. My everything's in there.
Wallet, ID keys, credit cards, his name, his address back home. The people in that tunnel now had Zach's name, his address, everything. Then we heard the engine, vehicle on the road, not close, but not far, moving, stopping, moving again. The same road we'd followed in, the one that looked recently used. Now we understood why. They were using it, right now, because of us. Zach's face did something. This expression, like he was calculating, like he might go back. Like his brain was spiraling into, I need my stuff. I grabbed his arm, hard, harder than I meant to. No. He stopped, looked at me, then he patted his chest. Under his jacket he had this little fanny pack thing. He'd forgotten about it. I'd forgotten about it. He unzipped it. Documents, keys, the car keys, phone. Still there. For a second, he looked like he might collapse from relief. Then the relief turned into something worse, because now we knew. We were committed. The pack was gone. The road was active. The people in the tunnels were angry. We were deep in wilderness, with no quick route out. We didn't talk much after that. We needed to move. That was the only clear thought. Not back to the main trail. That would take us too close to the road. We angled away, into thicker terrain, the kind of stuff that's hard to move through, but hard to follow someone through too. Harder terrain meant no people, fewer corridors, fewer predictable lines. That seemed like the logic anyway. I don't know if we actually thought it through. We just moved. That night, we didn't make a fire. I don't care how cold it gets. If you think someone is looking for you, you do not light yourself up like a beacon in the dark. Didn't set up the tent. A tent is a shape. A tent is a statement. A tent says, someone is here. We found a low spot under some heavy branches, the kind of place where you'd walk right past without noticing anyone was there. Squeezed in to hide completely. But we didn't really sleep. Every sound was something. Wind through branches sounded like footsteps. A branch falling somewhere far off sounded like a voice. An owl made me jolt upright so fast I nearly screamed. I lay there thinking about the grab, the way the guy moved. Zach got lucky with the strap tearing. What if it hadn't torn? What if I'd had to watch him get dragged back into that tunnel? What would I have done? I thought about that all night. I still don't have an answer. I dozed off at some point. Woke up to Zach whispering, "You think they're looking for us?" It was still dark. I could barely see him, just a shape in the blackness, just the white of his eyes catching some sliver of moonlight. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. "They have my name," he said. "My address." "Just keep moving," I said. "In the morning, just keep moving." That's all I had. Day 5. I think it was day 5. The days started blurring together. We moved slow. Off-trail travel is hard. Ravines, thickets, deadfall. Every mile takes 3 times as long. We were trying to work our way parallel to the main trail without actually being on it. The fear wasn't clean anymore. It was mixed with exhaustion and hunger and the constant need to make decisions. Where to step? Which way to go? Where to find water? How long to rest? Fear uses energy, real energy. The constant scanning, checking every direction, listening to every sound, it wears you down. Late morning we heard something, low hum, mechanical, steady, generator, coming from somewhere off to our right. Not close, maybe half a mile. But in the quiet out there, sound carries for miles. We changed direction, moved away from it. The implication was clear, even if we didn't say it. More than one site. A network, maybe. We were not dealing with a single hidden spot. We were dealing with something larger, something with infrastructure, something with reach. That night we found a rock overhang. Not a cave, just an indent in a cliff face, deep enough to give some shelter. We sat there in the dark. Didn't talk. At some point a sound carried from far off. A shout. Human voice. Words I couldn't make out. Just the shape of language, echoing off the hills. Could have been anything. Hikers calling to each other. Someone who'd lost their dog. We didn't move. Didn't talk. Zach's hand found my arm in the dark and just stayed there. The sound didn't repeat. We stayed frozen anyway, for hours. Day 6, heavy fatigue. That bone-tired feeling where everything takes effort, even thinking takes effort. You don't realize how much energy fear uses up until you've been running on it for days. The constant alertness, checking every direction, listening to every sound, starting at every snap of a twig. We found a plastic water bottle by a tree. Middle of nowhere, no trail nearby. Just there, sitting against the trunk. It wasn't weathered. The label was still bright, edges clean. Someone had been through here, recently. Zach picked it up, looked at it, set it back down carefully, exactly where it had been. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. We weren't the only ones out here, even in places that felt empty. Day 7. We were getting close to the main trail corridor. You could tell because the ground was more disturbed, more footprints, actual trail markers on trees, normal signs of people. But we didn't get on the trail. We paralleled it through the brush, 20, 30 feet off, close enough to follow it, far enough to not be visible. We heard voices, normal voices. A couple hiking, talking about what they were going to eat when they got back to town. Burgers, beer. The woman said she wanted a hot shower more than anything. Normal hikers, normal packs, normal poles, normal lives. We dropped flat, watched them through the brush. They walked right past, without seeing us. We stayed there for a long time after they were gone, making sure. That's the level we were at by then. We didn't trust a normal human voice in the woods. That night we slept, if you can call it sleeping, in a dense thicket, the kind of spot where you have to crawl to get into, uncomfortable, safe. I kept thinking about those hikers, how normal they looked, how they had no idea what was out there, how we'd looked exactly like them a week ago, how you can be inside something that dangerous and have no idea for days because nothing about it looks like danger. It looks like a hiking trip. It looks like exactly what you came for. Day 8. We pushed for the trailhead. Faint road noise first. Cars in the distance. A sound I'd taken for granted my whole life. Suddenly, the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. Then actual pavement, through the trees. We only stepped onto the trail for the last stretch. Moved fast. Didn't stop. The trailhead was just there. Sign, parking lot, trash can, information board with a map behind dirty plexiglass. Normal things, civilization things. Our rental sat where we'd left it. Silver SUV, covered in dust now, but otherwise fine. I unlocked it, and my hands were shaking. Couldn't get the key in on the first try. Second try. Third. We got in, locked the doors. For a minute, we just sat there. We drove. I kept checking the mirrors. Every car behind us was suspicious, every truck. We didn't stop in the small towns. Went for a bigger place, some sprawl off the highway. Motel with a parking lot in back, where you couldn't see the cars from the road. Checked in with cash. Zach's card would have worked. His wallet was gone, but he had a backup card in his fanny pack. But cash felt safer. Room with the curtains pulled. Sitting on the beds. Checking the parking lot every 10 minutes. We barely slept. We talked about calling someone. Police, rangers, something. But that meant names, addresses, explaining exactly where we'd been, what we'd seen. Zach's information was in his pack, his real address, his name. If we reported it and someone connected to that operation had any kind of access to police reports. We didn't know. We didn't know how far it went. We didn't know who might be involved. We didn't know anything, except that we were scared. So we called the ranger station, payphone outside a gas station, anonymous. Said we'd been hiking in the Siskiyou area, saw something suspicious. Gave them a general location, not exact, just the area. Guy on the phone was polite and calm, but uninterested. He said they'd look into it. Thanks for the tip. That was it. We never heard anything else about it. We flew home the next day, changed our flights. Didn't talk much in the airport or on the plane. Zach went back to his job. I went back to mine. Inbox still full. Meetings still blurring together. A few weeks later, I looked online. Searched for news from that area. Drug busts, arrests, federal operations. Anything. Nothing. Maybe they found it. Maybe they cleaned it out before anyone got there. Maybe they're still there. I don't know. I keep thinking about things, not the gunshots or whatever they were, not the running. Those parts are almost abstract now, like they happened to someone else. I keep thinking about the grab, the coffee mugs, how clean they were, how normal the setup looked, like it was just a job site, like people showed up, did their shift, went home. I keep thinking about the grip, the force behind it, the certainty, the speed. How quickly that guy moved when he realized we were there. How did they all even knew we were there? We were two experienced hikers on a well-planned trip, doing exactly what we'd done a dozen times before. We found an old road. We followed it because it was interesting. We found an old structure. We went a little closer because that's what you do. Every single decision made total sense inside the logic of a normal trip, and none of it was a normal trip. It just took a while for the situation to reveal that. By the time it did, we were already in the middle of it. 5 minutes. That's what I keep coming back to. 5 minutes between seeing the coffee mugs and running through trees with whatever that was behind us. 5 minutes to go from curious to hunted. Zach and I still talk, not as often as we used to. The trip changed something. We don't talk about it much, but it's there. This thing we survived together that we can't quite put into words. I still hike. I still camp. But I'm way more careful exploring abandoned places. And I know how fast a good trip can turn into a situation where you're lying under trees, starving, cold, afraid to light a flame, listening to the forest and wondering if the next sound will be human. If this story stayed with you, consider subscribing. There's always another one coming.